Neil Armstrong. Who was the first man on the moon? Neil Armstrong. Who was the first man on the moon? Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong was born August 5th, 1930, on the edge of a small farming town called Wapakoneta, Ohio, where the land is flat and on a clear day the skies are limitless. Neil loved reading, building model planes, and looking after his younger siblings. He experimented a lot as a boy, tinkering, exploring, and always wanting to learn more about the world around him. Sometimes Neil's experiments were outright disasters. But with each disaster, he became more familiar with risk and when it was a good time to take one. His curiosity with the world continued throughout his life. He learned how to fly planes when he was still in high school, served as a Navy pilot during the Korean War, and then graduated from college as an aeronautical engineer. He was a pilot of experimental planes like the X-15, and because of his reputation for being able to fly any aircraft, in 1962, NASA selected him to be among their second group of astronauts. On July 16, 1969, Neil set out on a space flight with his fellow crew members, Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins. At the Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida, all systems were go. The crew at NASA Mission Control Center, located in Houston, Texas, was ready for liftoff, and the entire world was watching. Neil had no idea how his experiment would unfold. All he knew was that he wasn't in Wapakoneta anymore, and this time there was no room for mistakes. Every experiment, every takeoff and landing, all the falls and moments too close to call, got Neil to July 20th, 1969, the day he was in. This was known as the Apollo 11 mission. Ohio, late 1930s. Don't you even think about climbing that tree, Neil Armstrong. Mama told you not to. June, hush. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lift off. Should I get Mama? Yeah. Goodness, Neil. What did I tell you about climbing that old tree? Not to. That's right, not to. Can you sit up? Well, what did we learn today? To never trust a dead limb? No, to always listen to your mama. But never trust a dead limb. Not a bad lesson either. July 20th, 1969, 4 days after launch. So Neil, you're 24,000 miles from Earth and about to become the first man to walk on the moon. How does it feel? Well, a bit uncomfortable in this suit, I'm being honest. You're telling me you're really just going to sit around up here and miss all the fun, Mike? Someone has to make sure our ride home doesn't go drifting off in space. Take care of her, will ya? Columbia will be just fine without you. And buzz around stinking up the joint. Welcome to the Eagle Lander destination, the moon. Ready? Ready. Got some work ahead of us before we can go anywhere. Looks like you have the computer checks covered, so I'll inspect the ascent engine. What's taking so long? You've been at those diagnostics for almost 2 hours. You know as well as I do, Mike. Can't rush perfection. How's the Khazar over there? He's so quiet. Just hanging on and punching. Thought I told you not to call me that. Hey, that's what they're calling you in the papers. You know, you should know better than to believe all that. Your cats take it easy on the lunar surface. You all set? Yes. I think we're about ready. All set when you are, Mike. The Eagle has wings. I think you've got a fine-looking flying machine there, Eagle, despite the fact you're upside down. Someone's upside down, all right. See you later. Okay, Eagle. You guys take care. Michael Collins. Michael Collins was born on October 31st, 1930, in Rome, Italy, where his father, Major General James Collins, was stationed in the military, curious and very clever. Michael loved to read and enjoyed building model planes. He played on his high school football team and went to attend the United States Military Academy at West Point, where he graduated with a Bachelor of Science in 1952. Michael served as a fighter pilot as well as an experimental test pilot prior to be selected to join the third group of NASA astronauts in 1963 with NASA. He was the pilot of Gemini 10, a mission in which he became just the third American ever to complete an EVA extravehicular activity, or to put it in simpler and cooler terms, he spacewalked for the Apollo 11 mission. Michael became the pilot of Columbia, the command module that stayed behind, while Neil and Buzz completed their journey to the moon. After the mission, Michael received the 1969 Presidential Medal of Freedom and was also awarded the 2011 Congressional Gold Medal, two of the highest awards a civilian can receive in the United States. Got the Earth straight out our front window. Sure do. Houston, you're looking at our delta. That's affirmative eagle. Height difference. Program alarm. NASA mission control. What's our read? It's looking good for us. It's 1,202. 1,202. What is it? I have no idea. Give us a reading on the 1,202 program alarm. With every second that passes, as the commander, Neil, has to give focus over the alarms and not on the landing. Back on Earth, he carefully studied landmarks of the moon's surface to help guide him to the spot where they wanted Eagle to land. But his eye has to be on the alarms, and if worst comes to worst, on the abort mission buttons. And then 18 agonizing seconds after first calling in the alarm. Roger. We're go on that alarm. Looks like the system was just a bit overloaded, fellas. At 7 minutes, you're looking good to us, Eagle. Buzz, I'm not recognizing any of the landmarks down there. I memorized. I think with all of those alarms, we missed our landing zone. Well, Lucky for us, it looks like there's plenty of parking spots left. This is serious, Buzz. So am I. We'll find a good place to land. Eagle, the Apollo 11 lunar module. Eagle, the Apollo 11 lunar module. Designed for the sole purpose of landing on and taking off from the moon. The lunar module, known as Eagle for the Apollo 11 mission, was actually two different spacecrafts put together. One to land on the moon and the other to rejoin Columbia and go back home. Inside, there were no seats for the astronauts because the craft had to be light enough to fly. In fact, Neil and Buzz were standing for the whole flight. Another way NASA engineers reduced weight was by cutting down the size of the windows. So by the time Neil and Buzz were standing at the controls, there was not much space for the astronauts to even look outside. His fall out of the tree was one of Neil's first experiences with flight, or rather falling. But flying had been a fascination of his from a very early age. When he was 2 years old, his parents bought him a model plane. Careful now, Neil. That cost 20 cents down at the store. From the point on he was zooming and out of the house, all he wanted to do was fly. And when his mind wasn't on flying, it was probably focused on why something didn't fly. Neil built countless model airplanes. It was one of his favorite hobbies. The only problem was they could never go fast enough, never high enough for Neil. You want to see something really neat? Wow! What is that? It's a wind tunnel. Here, you plug it in and I'll hold the plane. What is going on down here? Neil, you shouldn't be teaching your brother and sister to be running around the house like a couple of whoosh. Neil Alden Armstrong. I might have a slight miscalculation somewhere. 700 feet, 21 down, 33 degrees. They are just 700 feet above the moon, dropping at the rate of 20 feet per second. 33 degrees is the area where the onboard computer is telling them they should land. Computer is guiding us to a pretty rocky area. what was that? What was that you said about plenty of parking? Well, I obviously meant after the crater the size of a football field and boulders the size of cars, obviously. "600 feet down at 19 feet per second, 540 feet down at 30, down at 15. I'm taking it into manual control to land." The way I see it, we've got two choices on where to land. The first is to pull up and try to land before the crater. The danger in that being we won't be able to see what is directly below us. So if we try to land now, we could wind up right on top of a gigantic rock and not to know until it's too late. Exactly. And what's our second choice? When in